I think Tegan and I always go into our records with a premeditated, very well thought out plan, if you will. I don't think that we've ever ended up at the end of a record and thought, like, I can't believe what we came out with. Like, we definitely know that we're setting goals. We have expectations about sonics and execution and all those types of things. Even though we had planned it all out and we knew what we wanted to do, I think we could never have known what these producers were going to bring to the record and how they were going to help us enhance the music we had written. I think that the evolution of Tegan and Sara is that when we started recording music, it was to record songs. So the sonics of the record, the actual level of production was probably not the first thing that we thought about when we were in the studio. And performance was maybe up there in the top 3, but it was really the songs. It was about telling a very clear story, and I think that we really honed our craft over our first few records. And it was probably in the mid-2000s that we started to concern ourselves with the sound of the record. And so with Heartthrob, our newest record, I think that we took it even that much further. We picked a producer that had the sound that we like. Greg Kirsten specifically, the first producer we picked, he'd worked on everything from Lady Hawk and Lily Allen to Kesha and Katy Perry, and when I went and met with him, he was making the new Shins record. So it's like he has a very signature sound while also working on a wide spectrum of music. So I think this time around, sound was super important, and I think that it starts with the right producer and the right songs. I think we were constantly surprised by Greg. His abilities in the studio surpassed anything I could have ever imagined. A lot of the studio was about getting ideas, getting melodies, getting drum parts, whatever, into the computer, and then manipulating them in a way that truthfully, I just felt like we were working with like a genius. Even how he would take an idea that Sarah had come up with, or an idea like, there's a song called I Was a Fool on the record, and the hook off the top, the piano line, was something I wrote. It was in my demo. But when we got into the studio, it's like usually I would go in and I would try to replay that part, and I would do like 900 takes of it, and then they'd find the best one and then put that one there. And Greg was just like, he would go through the demos, pick what's like parts he loved, and then he would just wander over into the studio and sit down at a piano. He just has mic'd, and he would just sit down and play it. And we'd get to sit in the booth and be like, yeah, that sounds great, or like, more Roxette, like, and he would be like, oh, well, we need to do some pushing chords at the same time.
He was one of the first musicians and producers we've ever worked with where there were so many ideas flying around that we could very easily say, oh, Greg, I'm really hearing like, and then we could sing a melody. And he would say, oh, yeah, I wonder what that could be on. Maybe it should be your voice. Or, oh, maybe I'll play it on this old, Prodigy. And he would, like, go over and play it on a keyboard. And I just had never been so collaborative and so impulsive around another producer or another musician. And it was incredibly satisfying, on so many levels.
Making Heartthrob, I was focusing a lot more on my past influences. So I was writing about the past. I was writing about the 80s and 90s, well, mostly the 90s, but I was influenced by a lot of what we grew up listening to in the 80s and 90s. So I was explaining to people that like I was going for like Ace of Base and Kate Bush, it's weird and quirky and lots of vocals and melodies, but then almost kind of like a straight ahead production, closer. All I wanna know is, can you come a little closer? Thanks, you guys. Thank you very much.